Welcome to Grazing Hell, the one and only podcast made by a cow. And we've got a little cow guest today, as well as her human, Audrey Chamberlin, owner of Pony Up Press, who is also the artist behind the artwork for this podcast. So I'm so happy to have you both here today. You and little Phoebe, the chihuahua in her cow onesie. Oh, God, I'm screaming.
She is dressed for the occasion.
If you're listening, I cannot describe how cute this is. Phoebe, it looks quite fluffy, doesn't it? It's like a little,
Yeah, it's fuzzy, nice and fleecy for the winter.
I love that it's a little bit big for her as well. That makes me, like, the sleeves are a little bit baggy, which makes it extra cute. She looks like a baby,
It is baggy. It has back legs too. It's like a onesie, and I have to roll up the legs.
Oh my gosh, she is an angel. Unfortunately, Siggy is in bed, and she, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, she's scared of the microphone. So who knows if she'll join us? But Phoebe is here, and that's all that matters. So,
but Phoebe does not like to be in my lap all the time, so she's just gonna sleep behind us on my bed.
Hopefully you heard that little shake. Oh, is she digging?
Okay. Yep, she's circling.
Yeah.
Oh, and there she goes.
Oh gosh, if you are listening and not watching, you are missing out on some cuteness. So, Audrey, do you want to tell the people who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Audrey Chamberlin. I'm the owner of Pony Up Press, which is my little business. I'm an illustrator and product designer. I currently work full-time as a product designer, and I'm working on my illustration. And at Pony Up Press, I make various kinds of merchandise. I make t-shirts, pins, stickers, prints. I just recently did patches for the first time. So please check that out.
Yeah, of course.
If you
I'll
get
have
the
all the
chance.
links.
But yeah, I have a degree in design, and I also have a lot of experience with small business. I have only ever worked for small businesses with one exception. I did work for my university for a brief time, and then I got fired.
Oh, sorry, everybody. Just a moment. We've got Siggy has joined us. Hi, Siggy.
Wow.
And look, it's your friend Phoebe. Hey.
Yep, there's Phoebe. Phoebe, you see this? She's like,
Phoebe's like,
piss
nah,
off.
I'm napping. Sorry, you were saying you got fired by your university.
I did. They said that I asked too many questions.
Oh, wow. That sounds kind of culty. Getting kicked out for asking too many questions.
It was more like I didn't understand the instructions that were given to me by my boss.
Okay. Right.
And I didn't know what was going on, and they gave me no training, and then they fired me.
That's awesome. Love that.
It was not my best moment, but I used it as a moment of growth.
Exactly. No, we've all, no. I've been let go from retail jobs because I'm just not very good at it. Exactly. So, okay.
I'm not very good at it either. I'm very lucky right now to not have to deal with any customers at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
At least in my day job.
Yeah.
I do deal with customers in my side hustle.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing said side hustle?
So I started it in January of 2020, which was a bad time to start it. But I have been drawing, I guess, for my whole life. I did abandon it briefly when I was in high school and the beginning of college, because I went a different direction, but then I came back to it, and I'm loving it even more.
I love that. Okay. So, well, there are three reasons I'm having you on today. One being that we're buds. We haven't met in real life, but I now consider you a pal. And
thank you so much. I consider you a pal as well.
And you made a beautiful cow for the podcast. But secondly, I feel like you have a really good insight into small business culture that I just think people can learn a lot from it, because we're living in an economy where, or at least on our side, like the more arty side of social media, we are more interested in consuming small businesses. However, there's like a lot of etiquette and there's lots of things to consider, and there's always gossip, there's always I don't know, challenges and stuff. So I'm curious to hear about all your thoughts on the small business world and all its going-ons.
Well, a couple of years ago, I think most people thought of small businesses as whatever kind of brick and mortar store you had in your town, whatever wasn't a chain, like mom and pop stores. I come from a really small town, so it was mostly small businesses. We weren't allowed, I think there's something in the town charter or whatever that you weren't allowed to have chain stores. So our only chains were like Dunkin' Donuts and a Subway.
Oh,
Some
wow.
of those slipped in there. So I was really, really fortunate to like grow up in that kind of economy, I guess. I just kind of grew up with that. And now the way that a small business is thought of, especially after the pandemic, small business is taking on a whole different name. Like anybody can have a small business now, where I feel for like the last couple decades, it's been, oh, you have a small business. It meant it was really, really hard to start. But now it's a lot easier, especially with the pandemic starting and on TikTok.
Yeah.
Especially.
Tell me about
Huge
that,
boom in small
because you use TikTok for marketing. Yeah, what's the deal with small business TikTok?
So small business TikTok is kind of a whole can of worms because it's definitely changed over time the way that people feel about it.
Okay.
I think the term small business has almost become taboo on TikTok now, or kind of like a joke on TikTok.
Like girl
yeah,
boss.
So yeah, kind of like a girl boss thing, which really sucks for me and the other people doing the same thing as me. Because I don't want to say I'm a hashtag girl boss, but
you're a girl and you are a boss of your own business.
I'm a girl and I'm a boss. That's right. But anyway, so yeah, when the pandemic started, I think that people are running, they don't have enough things to do. They're bored. And it's like, well, I'm going to start a side hustle. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you aren't working. So now is a great time to start your own business. If you are a maker and you want to make stuff, say you were making jewelry on the side for all your friends and family or for yourself. And now it's like, well, I have all the time. I don't have a job. I'm going to monetize it, you know? I think it's great. It was definitely great that all these people were starting small businesses. If you knew how to sew, you could sew and you could sew things and sell them. Really, really easy side hustle. I'm totally a big proponent of side hustles, full-time hustles.
Yeah.
Small business lover.
Of course.
And then you started getting that audio. I don't know if you've heard that audio.
Okay.
That's like, I don't want to sing it. It's like, it costs that much because it takes me fucking hours.
Right. Yeah.
Costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
Yeah, so like, I think that song was like the downfall of it all.
Oh no, really? Because to me, when I first hear that doesn't sound inherently bad to me, because it's like, that's something I still see, you know, people just don't value labor. They just think, $100 for a sweater, that's overpriced. It's like, it's not overpriced. You just don't know how much labor goes into it. You don't know how much the materials cost when someone isn't being forced to make it in a sweatshop. Like, so...
It's certainly true. Fast fashion has definitely redefined the way we think of our clothing prices. So that's definitely a big part of it when it comes to more of the apparel side of things. But honestly, that kind of bleeds over into anything.
Yeah, no, true.
Very much rarely, since we have come up with better ways to manufacture things, very rarely are people wanting to turn to more bespoke things. Which is how a lot of people make their livelihoods, which was unfortunate. But I think now, I don't know if it's like the pandemic itself or just maybe more liberal views coming into play. But people are definitely wanting things made in small batches or from small businesses more now. But that audio, I think, after a time did come across as pretentious because there is... And I guess, discussed this a lot with my other friends who own their own businesses or are independent artists, that there is like a learning curve. You can't automatically just sell whatever you make for the amount of time it takes you.
Gotcha, yeah.
Which is definitely an issue. I think that's what a lot of people have had criticisms of, is that just because it takes you a long time doesn't necessarily mean it's a good product.
Hard pills to swallow, but yes, no, I do see what you mean.
I know.
You're right. I relate to that as a photographer. You know, I've worked as a photographer for like 5+ years, and I look back at my headshots from when I first started, and I think, I'm glad I only charged this much. I wouldn't charge what I charge now for those because they're not as good as my work now. And like, I look back at that and I'm like, oh, cringe. So yeah, when you start out and you're just getting clients and you're still learning, I agree, you gotta price according to that.
Yeah, and I mean, for everybody, I think for every artist, there is a propensity to undercharge. Yeah. And I mean, I undercharge everything I do. My friends who are professional full-time artists, they undercharge everything they do. So I think with that, like, audio, or that kind of mentality that came along with that audio, or like formed that audio, kind of has to do with, you can't just charge a price for X amount of hours that you worked on something because you worked on it. You have to have like the skill that comes with it. Yes. And you have to have, you can't like jump out of the gate charging people like $35 an hour for you to make something. Which is a tough pill to swallow because, again, with a lot of these small businesses and people that are making things by hand, it is really personal to them.
And they're working as hard. But as you say, it's not just about the work, it's about the skill and the labor and the expertise. And that's also what you're paying for, so...
Certainly. I mean, I can work on a drawing for 5 hours and want to, you know, get paid $35 an hour for it, but it's just not realistic because my skills like aren't there yet. Which is fine for me, you know, it's a side hustle, but some people that is their full-time hustle. So it's a difficult kind of line to draw. It's a very, very difficult thing to figure out how much to charge people for stuff. With I think this like boom of small businesses, we also have all these people who are learning what drop shipping is. I don't know your experience with like drop shipping, or if you know what that is.
Yeah, do you want to explain it? And I think I do know what it is, but do you want to explain it for the listeners in case they don't? Yeah,
so drop shipping is pretty much you have some sort of e-commerce platform and a website, and you purchase things from that website, but the business never has those items actually in inventory. So those items come from some sort of wholesaler or manufacturer directly. So the business does not hold any inventory. And that's different from, say, a business that doesn't hold inventory and has things on demand and is making them. Like this, a business will have nothing to do with the inventory, essentially. They pretty much just set up the platform in order to be able to send items out.
Okay. And a lot of people have a problem with this. So yeah, what are the issues that crop up with this?
Well, some people think it's kind of shady. And I think when you're coming to selling things like clothes, which is where a lot of drop shipping comes into play, is with clothing, especially with Instagram boutiques and things like that, is that they don't often experience the product very much. Sometimes they'll get a sample of the product, but not a big shipment. So the quality control is out of their hands, essentially. And more often than not, drop shipped items are not made very well. So it's something that quality control is kind of essential for if you're going to sell a cheap product.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much just paying for the business that's doing the drop shipping to handle that exchange and to have the website up front. Whereas a lot of clothing that you find on like random Instagram boutiques, a lot of that clothing you can go onto like AliExpress and you can find the exact listing for.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a really great TikToker. Her name is Madeline Pendleton, and she owns a clothing company called Tunnel Vision. And she has a lot of really, really awesome, insightful videos about this whole process because she's been working in fashion design for like 10 or 15 years, and she creates all her own designs for her company and then also sources some vintage clothing too, I believe. But she has experience in all of these manufacturing pipelines, I guess. And she actually can often go onto like stores that people ask for. They'll be like, oh, can you check XX store and tell me if it's like a drop shipper or they're making their own clothing? And she can go on there, and if it's a drop shipper, they more often than not will have actual pictures of her clothing and copies of her designs on their website.
That is shady.
It happens. I mean, she does these videos a lot, and that happens very, very often. It's shocking how often it happens.
Yeah, that is... It's the stealing designs as well. That's really extra level of shitty, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, the way... It's actually a huge problem. The way that happens is that a lot of independent designers and independent artists will use a website like Alibaba to find a manufacturer more often than not in China, which doesn't mean that it's unethical manufacturing. You know, there is a lot of ethical manufacturing in China, and it's not necessarily bad that something's made in China. Just like it's not necessarily good that it's made in the U.S. Because there are some issues with factories, especially in LA, especially with clothing, where they aren't ethically manufactured.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing, because that's a big marketing thing at the moment, made in the USA, made in Britain, and all this stuff. And obviously, I know this is a very extreme example, but it came out about, I think, it was a Pretty Little Thing, this like very... I don't know how to say it. It's like a Forever 21 type brand.
Essentially,
turns out they were paying their workers who were working in England like £2 an hour. So exactly, like you say, it's you're not safe just because it's made in the same country.
Fashion Nova does the exact same thing. I mean, you can often tell by a garment if it looks cheap. It's probably made with unethical manufacturing. I'm telling you right now, if it's a cheap shirt that's new, you should be skeptical. That Madeline Pendleton talks a lot about that in her videos as well. She says that she can make like a very, very, very simple cut and sew dress for around $45 with ethical labor. But if you start adding lace, if you start adding embroidery, which is a very expensive method. Embroidery is very expensive. If anything has embroidery and it's cheap, definitely a red flag.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, embroidery is very expensive. I have a close friend of mine has 2 embroidery machines. And she does a lot of embroidered apparel, and her sweatshirts cost anywhere it's in the hundreds.
Jeez. Yeah,
it's like $100 to $160 for one of her sweatshirts. They're extremely detailed. It can take I think around an hour and a half for some of her embroidered designs on her embroidery machine. And those machines also, one of them is, I think, new, was $6,000.
Jeez, lordy. Well, there you go. Exactly. It's and like crochet, I follow some crochet people, and someone shared something from a fast fashion store, I can't remember which one, and it was like a crochet dress for like £40, and that must take a long time to make. So they were basically just saying this is really dodgy.
It's a lot of, if you know it when you see it.
Right.
So, but when it comes down to stealing designs, how that happens is when designers look on AliExpress or Alibaba for their manufacturers, which is how a lot of people find manufacturers, or how they source materials. And a lot of those manufacturers will just take your designs.
Wow.
It's as simple as that. They just take your designs. The same friend with the embroidery machine, she said that she contacted, I believe she said, around 20 to 50 manufacturers to find one.
Jeez.
Because they can be really dodgy. And there is definitely a language barrier but some of them, are trying to do things like take your designs, and it's really unlikely that you're going to be able to do anything about that.
Yeah, and reason being, I mean, I can't remember what it's like in the US, but in the UK, you can't really copyright a shape of clothing or anything like that, like a sort of silhouette, because it's a utility. You can only really copyright a pattern, I believe. I don't know if it's a similar system in the US, but I think that's why it's so easy to steal designs, and the artist can't really do anything because it's like, I don't really have copyright over this. So
yeah, you're right in that it's very, very, very difficult to copyright fashion. It's incredibly difficult. So I think more often than not, you can end up copywriting the utility aspect if it has some sort of different utility, but you can't just patent something because it's a shirt that keeps you warm. You know,
right, exactly.
It's a shirt that covers your boobs. I mean, that's every shirt, mostly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have artists who have created products, and the products that they have end up anywhere. It can end up in those dropshipping Instagram boutiques that are really small. It can end up at Zara.
Yeah. Another thing that's...
I mean, Zara is
they're notorious. Yes, I've seen so many posts about Zara. Is it Diet Prada, the Instagram page? They call out a lot of it. Would recommend that. It's a good page. And it's just, the audacity of it is just, wow.
Yeah, and more often than not, when companies do that, they're like, oh, that's from our manufacturer. They didn't tell us that it was stolen.
Oh, really?
And it's like, well, maybe you should research something a little bit before you put it on the shelves, or you buy, thousands of units of stock. But it's definitely, I'm afraid of it for sure, especially with my designs that are more successful and like a little more palatable to larger audiences. I mean, my cow pin. I have a pin that's a cow with a little cowboy hat and booties. It's
so
pretty
cute.
simple. It's really cute.
It is.
It's pretty simple, but that's something that definitely can be corrupted. But there are kind of two routes that you can take when it comes to manufacturing things in China, is that you can contact a manufacturer directly through something like Alibaba, or you can use a kind of an American middleman. And there's companies like Vogue Race, for example. They're a big company that people use for like keychains, pins, lanyards, washi tape, things like that. And they're an American middleman, so it costs more. You are paying more upfront, but I think it's like a little safer, or they have like dedicated manufacturers. I'm not exactly sure when it comes to that, but I think it's a little safer to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a dog eat dog world out there.
It really
you can
is.
see, which is really, really sad. You know, how things like fast fashion can just bleed into every aspect of business.
It's like everything has become an industry. Like everything is commodified to the point that, and I think this is a big issue with like free market capitalism, because it's so unregulated. You can just make money out of anything, and therefore everything is like profit fueled. There's like no ethics behind it.
Exactly. Like no matter how big a business that you have, it's functioning on a capitalist economy. So you kind of have to play with the rules of capitalism, which sucks a lot sometimes. I mean, you have to play with the rules of marketing, and you gotta, if TikTok's what's working for marketing, you gotta go on TikTok. And let me tell you, that shit's a battlefield.
Is it? I've heard there's that ongoing joke that TikTok comments are just a hellhole, basically. Worse than YouTube comments somehow, which amazes me.
I know the YouTube comment section is usually pretty brutal, but yeah, TikTok can definitely be brutal. I mean, comments like don't really faze me. I mean, I haven't gone truly viral yet. So.
Also, it just amazes me the things that can end up being controversial, because I'm trying to think like how any of your posts could be controversial, but on TikTok they can, because like posting like a video of your little cow pin with cowboy boots could piss some people off on TikTok. That's the kind of environment it is. It blows my mind.
It's certainly scary. I mean, again, people don't really understand the cost of starting a business and the cost of manufacturing things. So they see on TikTok, obviously, gives an ideal view of all the cool things that are happening. So it's behind the scenes, to understand like the amount of investment and time and whatnot that goes into those things. And TikTok has definitely changed that too. For a while, people were doing like packaging videos, and then suddenly you got to get good ass packaging.
Yeah.
And that's expensive.
Also, a lot of it is going to go in the bin anyway. I don't know. I always wonder how much is it worth for you investing, or is it worth it? Because it will make people more likely to buy it. I don't know. That's a question for you. You would know more than I would.
I mean, that's definitely something that I've...
Sorry, this is Siggy. She's getting under the blanket.
It's fair. It's probably chilly over there. It's chilly here, so...
It is. No, it is. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Sorry, Siggy's very important.
I know, exactly.
But what was I saying? Yeah, packaging.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is very expensive, and you're right. It is likely going to be trash unless you're like me and you like to save every little bit of packaging and reuse stuff. But not everybody does that, and so it makes me sad, when I design a beautiful pin card, that pin card's just probably going to go in the trash, which really sucks.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you think of just a print, I make my prints myself, and I put like a plastic baggie around them. And like, it sucks because that is, as of right now, kind of the best way to protect a print. It's like the professional way to do it. And even more professional if you have like a cardboard backing with it, or like a mat board backing. And all that stuff costs a lot of money. And, like that kind of thing, like a plastic bag for your print, that's kind of an essential thing. A card for your pin, that's essential. But when it comes to like, people have custom tissue paper.
Yes, I've seen that. Wow.
It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's an experience, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But when you're just starting out, your stuff's not going to look like that. And I think there was kind of an expectation on TikTok that when you order something from a business, no matter how big that business is, it's going to come in nice packaging.
Yeah.
When nice packaging is super wasteful.
I
mean, I would rather use just a pre-made tissue paper because it's less manufacturing cost and less wasteful in the manufacturing process. So that's where you get kind of like, to small business doesn't really equal ethical or sustainable or anything like that. It doesn't mean that. I don't know if you remember on TikTok in kind of the early days of the pandemic, you had a bunch of people who were ordering like charms off of AliExpress and just putting them on earring backs.
Yeah.
It was like, that's not, I mean...
So is that something you see quite a lot, where people take that a step further and they will use sustainable as a marketing thing, but you don't really necessarily need to prove it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of greenwashing involved, and I think I've been guilty of that before, because it takes a little while to understand what is truly sustainable. It's definitely is a buzzword now, and I used to think, I was trying my best, but it's very difficult to manufacture things on your own, and it's very difficult to get the most ethical manufacturing that you can. It's very difficult to manufacture things in the U.S., so there is a little bit of... I have to just try my best. I can't afford to, manufacture things in the U.S. I can't afford to manufacture pins in the U.S. It's very expensive. There's a little bit of like coping I have to do with myself. Like,
yeah. It's that transparency, though, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not trying to, fool anybody. I like putting that little made in the U.S. If my product is made in the U.S. on my website, because that's nice. It makes me feel good. But most of like the business owners that they don't get everything manufactured in the U.S., which is definitely unfortunate. I wish it weren't not manufactured in the U.S., but like manufactured ethically, because you can manufacture ethically in countries like China. It can be done, but it does take a lot of research.
Right.
It does take a lot of experience in that field. I'm just not that experienced in the whole finding manufacturers thing. I mean, as a brand, you can kind of get dinged for anything too. You got to be really careful.
Right.
I mean, it's just, you're just as susceptible to being canceled as if you were some sort of celebrity.
Okay.
Like if you're running your small business. I'm telling you, it's brutal out there too.
It's a Wild West.
It's the Wild West for sure. Definitely size inclusivity, huge.
That's a big one I see,
issue.
yeah.
You want to be as size inclusive as possible, of course, because you want anybody to be able to enjoy the things you make. And I think that's the same with with any brand, especially brands that are trying to be size inclusive, have a lot of trouble sometimes, even if they are, I guess, marketing themselves as size inclusive. For example, Big Bud Press, fairly popular brand. By this point, I've been following them for a few years. I have tons of their pieces. I personally love them as a company, and they carry sizes XX small to 5XL.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty big size range. Bigger than anything you can go to the mall and find. Except for maybe, I don't know, Hanes t-shirts or something like that, like something super simple. So it is awesome that they are providing like really well-made, beautiful clothing for people of all sizes. Size inclusivity also goes down to smaller sizes as well. Like for me, I'm very, very small. And I've never been able to find sizes for me until I found companies like Big Bud Press who went down to a XX small. But even Big Bud has gotten a lot of flack for not being size inclusive. Yeah. So I think the main problem has come down to their sizing being a little inconsistent, which they are trying to make unisex clothing. And everything is made in LA with like pretty non-stretch fabrics, which can be difficult to do, but they are really nice fabrics. You know, of course, the more stretch you have in a fabric, the less amount of time it's going to last, because things like spandex and elastic just don't last that well. They don't have a lot of longevity, and so people have like tried to boycott them before.
I've missed this completely.
It's a little under the radar. I'm on the Big Bud Press like Facebook group. I think I'm the only one in my age group who uses Facebook.
I was gonna say, yeah.
No, I'm like super active on Facebook.
You're a boomer.
I know. I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed, and it's like people in QAnon and anti-vaxxers. I mean, I definitely get an interesting view into what they're up to.
But so people boycott Big Bud Press because of lack of, or sort of inconsistent sizing. Was that kind of the main issue, or?
As far as I know, yes, as from what I've been able to see. But for me, at least, that's more of a customer service issue. They are they're a very transparent brand. And she's all about like loving bigger bodies. She uses a lot of models who are of all different shapes and sizes. And as far as I know, a lot of people who are larger sizes love their clothing, but some have had issues with them in the past. And I've seen them listed. I saw an infographic going around. I'm also on the Girlfriend Collective Facebook page, which is another size-inclusive athletic wear brand, or considered size-inclusive. But there was some sort of infographic that was lumping in a bunch of brands that weren't considered size-inclusive, and it had things like Forever 21 on it, and like Adidas or something, you know, all of these really big brands. And then Big Bud Press is on there too. So I think that's a little, I don't want to say, I guess, dodgy, but I think it's a little, or mean. I guess I can't find the word for it, but it's inaccurate, or not fair. It's mainly like not fair to a brand that is actively, even if you think that their sizing is off or inconsistent or whatever, like they're actively trying to be size inclusive.
To put them in the same list, as someone like Adidas or Forever 21 is just not fair, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Forever 21 has no reason to change their sizing, really. Again, they're probably not going to, because it's just like not, for them at this point, it's probably just not a worthwhile business endeavor to even bother, because that would require, I mean, they have thousands upon thousands of product listings on their website. I mean, imagine changing every single one of those listings, and also changing patterns, changing whatever manufacturing there is, like changing all of that. It's just not gonna happen for them.
Right.
They don't have any motivation to do that. So it's unfortunate that kind of happens. And then there's definitely a lot of dogpiling that goes on when it comes to criticizing small businesses, and it is sad. At least, I mean, coming from the perspective of a business owner, it is sad to see that. Especially for people who more often than not are, you know, trying to be much more ethical and sustainable than their fast fashion counterparts.
But they're held to such higher standards.
They are held to high standards, and it is a lot more personal because when you're running a small business, you have either a really small team or it's just you. And that's more often than not your life's work as well. So it's tough to see business owners go through things like that. I have sympathy for them for sure.
What small businesses spring to mind that you think are just really bad, if you're allowed to say? Or is that too
like it's hard to there are things that I don't support that I just don't think are like cool, but I wouldn't say they're bad because like I don't want those people to lose their livelihoods. You know, I hope that they aren't. I don't even want people to lose their side hustle. I want people to be able to grow and learn from things like constructive criticism. But what I look for, I guess, kind of as red flags, I suppose. If you ever see people like making rugs on TikTok and Instagram, a lot of people doing punch needling or tufting, rug tufting.
Okay.
A lot of them, they don't have their own designs. They'll take like scenes from movies, or they'll do like characters and things like that. And I just, from the point of view as an artist who does all original work, I just don't like that very much.
Yeah, no, fair
you see it. I mean, you see it. That was just one example. You see it a lot in every medium. But especially a lot of people on TikTok. And I think, you know, that's fine to work on your skill, to practice, but like to be selling things like that is just not.
Right, gotcha. Oh, okay.
There are, like when it comes to fan art, there's a lot of gray area because I think technically you're not supposed to sell a lot of things that are considered fan art.
Okay.
And some Comic Cons, even New York Comic Con this year, they have a rule that says that you can't sell fan art of any kind, but no, people sell it anyway. They sell it anyway. And fan art makes a ridiculous amount of money. Like,
of course,
if you want to make money, get into fan art. But I like personally can't do that. There's this guy I'm mentioning TikTok a lot, on TikTok all the time. It's for work. It's for business purposes. Also, the company that I work for is fairly active. We have a pretty big following on TikTok and Instagram, so I watch a lot. But anyway, there's this guy on TikTok who does, I think he's an art teacher, and he does kind of art reviews. And what he said, I know this is going to be a hot take because a lot of people do fan art. But he says something that I agree with, which is that any sort of fan art is going to be unoriginal in some way, which I think is just inherently true. And not that that's like bad. I don't think that fan art's bad. I just, you know, I do prefer original works personally, just because I like seeing what people can come up with all on their own. But I'm another Facebook page.
You boomer.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a double agent. I'm a double agent. Because I don't interact that much on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I don't post on Facebook. I'm just in groups on Facebook. For my model horse collection.
Oh wow, incredible!
Yeah,
that's a whole other rabbit hole. Yeah.
For everybody that liked me up until this point, I'm so sorry to disappoint.
You are a horse girl.
Yes, I do collect model horses.
Yeah.
I'm a horse girl through and through.
Do you watch Bob's Burgers?
Yes.
Tina, she has horses.
Yeah, Tina's a pretty accurate representation of what my
she's a
middle school life.
She's a horse girl who's never ridden a horse. You ride horses, don't you?
Yes, I do. I do ride horses.
You're a real horse girl.
Since I was like 5-ish, but I've been in a barn my whole life.
Has Phoebe met a horse?
Yes, Phoebe has met many horses. She's been on the backs of horses.
No, she hasn't. That's so cute.
Yes, she has.
Do they mind that they've got a tiny dog on their...
A lot of horses love dogs. I've had the same horse since I was a child. And so he's pretty old now, but he loves dogs. We would always bring our dogs to the barn to come see him. Yeah, and he always wants to sniff them and interact with them. They try to All the little ones, though, they try to nip at his nose, which is, of course, like this big compared to Phoebe. And his head's like this big.
Yeah.
And so she'll try to nip at him, and his head kind of just bobs.
Oh, that is so cute. What this guy was saying that fan art is inherently a little bit unoriginal. What else did he say? Or was that kind of the whole thing? Kind of.
I think that was mainly the gist of it.
Yeah.
But, like, I agree with that, and that's often a hard pill to swallow, and, you know, I don't want to, like... It doesn't mean that I think fan art's bad or that fan art artists are untalented, because some people make absolutely incredible fan art. Like, anything, pretty much anyone that makes Studio Ghibli fan art, I mean, you're already starting off with a incredible source material, you know? And I guess maybe it can be akin to, like, sampling in music.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's not artistic. It doesn't mean it's not like meaningful or good. It just it is. Yeah, it's like a process that involves sourcing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like not a personal preference of mine. Like I don't do fan art. I have like tried fan art a little bit, but I always just feel more inspired by doing my own things.
What about Phoebe fan art? You do Phoebe fan art.
Well, Phoebe is an original. So
oh, I love her so much. She's just on the bed being cute, and I would die for her. Oh, Siggy's under the blanket next to me.
Oh, she does not like the camera.
She does not, especially the microphone. She's terrified of the microphone.
Phoebe actually is not scared of very much.
Oh, good. Oh, hello. Yes.
She just opened her eyes.
Yeah.
And then she's back to sleep.
She knows we're talking about her.
This is her all day. I take her to work with me, and she just sleeps all day. We made her this... You can get these doll beds at IKEA. It's just like a small bed. And so I got one of those, and I set it up at work for her, and she sleeps in a little bed.
Oh, Angel. Oh, that is so wholesome.
She's the source for lots of inspiration for me in my art. She's my second Chihuahua.
Oh, yes.
And so both of them have been incredibly inspiring for me. I did some of my first art as like Chihuahua-based art. And now I do a lot of horses.
Yeah.
So.
And cows.
And cows. Yes, I do a lot of cows. Or one cow specifically.
Yes, the cow. Speaking of, do you want to tell the people where they can find you? Go find your work.
Sure. So on Instagram, I am Pony Up Press. So PONYUPPRESS. Just spell it out because some people think it's Pony Express. And then same thing on my website, just ponyuppress.com. And same thing on TikTok. But yeah, you can find all of my products there. And I post art on my Instagram as often as I make it.
Yes. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on today. It has been delightful, as always. Especially thank you to Phoebe for dressing the part. She's in her cow onesie. She's slaying. She came to serve a look, and I appreciate that. Yeah,
thank you so much for having me on. I rarely see the light of day on the internet, my face, so.
No, you did great. You did great. No, you're good. Shall we do our bye-bye now? You know, the one I do to the camera. Okay, are you ready? 3.
I'm ready.
2, 1. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.